The history of heavy.
Hello, it's episode 36 of the History of Heavy podcast, the show that traces the chronology of heavy music across genres, song by song. I am Michael Huntsman. That is Big Daddy Dave Lieberman. And tonight, Dave, we are finally really pushing the boundaries of genre for kind of maybe the furthest we've pushed so far. So I'm very excited about that episode. This episode, we'll get to that. How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I am also very well. We were just talking before we started recording about how warm it is and the pros and or cons of drinking hot tea while it is so warm. You are pro, I am con. But yeah, other than a little bit flush with the temperature, all is well. All is well.
Right on. Well, I'm looking forward to this episode too because I want to hear your thoughts and I want to hear your parts of the discussion.
I feel the same way, and I will say that this episode tonight and our episode next week are two of the episodes that I have been looking the most forward to doing, just because these are songs that aren't out of the pocket heavy necessarily, but in my opinion are heavy, which is why they're on the list and why we are talking about them. So we will begin that conversation tonight talking about Maggot Brain, the titular track from Funkadelic's 1971 album, but we can't get to that until we talk about 1971 itself. I teed off the year a little bit in the Janis Joplin episode, which was an episode that you hosted, a song that you chose. But we need to dig a little bit deeper into 1971, as we've spent the last two episodes, instead of talking about the year, talking about Pink Floyd and The Who. Tonight, Funkadelic, because they aren't necessarily, these totems of heavy necessarily. I think we'll dig back into the year. So it is time for the Cultural Corner.
Dave's Cultural!
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I want to take you through a little bit of what was going on in 1971. I know that you covered the first 3 months. I did want to mention in that time frame, I don't know if you mentioned it. I don't remember you talking about how on March 11th, THX 1138, George Lucas's first feature-length film, was released. I don't know if we talked about that.
I did. I mentioned it. I did not make a big to-do about it, but yes, I did in fact
Okay.
mention that.
All right. Well, good job for you for not making a big deal about it, but it should be a big deal.
Have
So
you
let's
ever
talk
seen it?
about what was
Have you
going
ever
on.
seen it?
I Man, in college, I think.
Yeah.
So I really would like to see it again. I don't remember almost anything about it.
I don't think I have ever seen it, and every time I hear it referenced, it just makes me wonder if that is in fact what the Misfits song "We Are 138" is about. But I don't know. Somebody out there knows. Somebody tell us. I don't know. But anyway,
Well,
I digress.
I bet the internet knows.
The internet.
All right. So looking later in the year, April 19th, Charles Manson is sentenced to death in the United States. In 1972, the sentence for all California death row inmates will be commuted to life imprisonment. So that happens the following year. May 5th, FedEx, the logistics and delivery service, is founded in Little Rock, Arkansas. June 27th, concert promoter Bill Graham closes the legendary Fillmore East. which first opened on 2nd Avenue in New York City on March 8th, 1968. July 3rd, Jim Morrison, lead singer of The Doors, dies of heart failure at the age of 27 in the bathtub of his apartment in Paris, France. July 4th, Michael S. Hart posts the first ebook, a copy of the United States Declaration of Independence, on the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign's mainframe computer, the origin of Project Gutenberg. So this is 1971 we get our first ebook. July 5th, right to vote, the 26th Amendment to the United States Constitution is formally certified by President Richard Nixon, lowering the voting age from 21 to 18. July 19th, the South Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City tops out at 1,362 feet, making it the second tallest building in the world. August 15th, President Richard Nixon announces the United States will no longer convert dollars to gold at a fixed value. So ending the gold standard in the United States. September 8th, the John F. Kennedy Center for Performing Arts is inaugurated. October 1st, Walt Disney World opens in Orlando, Florida. October 14th, Greenpeace is founded in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. November 3rd, the Unix Programmer's Manual is published. A lot of computer stuff starting to happen. November 8th, Led Zeppelin releases their fourth studio album, Led Zeppelin 4, which goes on to sell 23 million copies in the United States. November 15th, Intel releases the world's first microprocessor, the Intel 4004. November 24th, during a severe storm over Washington state, a man calling himself Dan Cooper, later misreported as D.B. Cooper, parachutes from the Northwest Orient Airlines plane he had hijacked with $200,000 in ransom money and is never seen again and is a very popular podcast topic today. December 4th, the Montreux Casino burns down during a Frank Zappa concert. This event is memorialized in the Deep Purple song Smoke on the Water. The casino was later rebuilt in 1975, but I thought that was cool that this is the moment where we get Smoke on the Water.
Yeah.
And December 30th, the first McDonald's in Australia opens in Yagoona, Sydney.
Okay.
So that's what's going on in the world in 1971.
That is the scene of tonight's song. You talked about how computers and technology seem to be a reoccurring topic in the cultural corner. Charles Manson as well. I feel like this is practically a Manson podcast for as much as he's come up, and of course that would make sense covering the 60s and the early 70s. But Mr. Manson is
but and that's why I love doing these, because we're still talking about this in our time warp, right? But we've exploded these times. But the fact is, people were living with this for years, right? This kept coming up because different pieces of it were playing out. There was the crime itself, the investigation, the trials, the right. So yeah, this is in the backdrop all the time. Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is such a significant part of Americana, which is
Mm-hmm.
just kind of crazy. Okay, well, also happening in 1971, Maggot Brain, the third album by Funkadelic, produced by George Clinton and released on Westbound Records on July 12th, 1971. The album charted on the Billboard R&B Top 20 and was quickly acknowledged as an all-time classic. Like all previous and future Funkadelic releases, Maggot Brain is a sonic fusion of psychedelic funk and booty-shaking rock that is incredibly catchy, melodic, danceable, and of course funky. And there is definitely always a bit of hard rock in Funkadelic. Note the distorted rhythm guitar on Super Stupid that in the Rolling Stone review of the record was compared to a Black Sabbath riff. But still, heavy is not a word that I would usually associate with Funkadelic, except on the title track. The song Maggot Brain kicks off the album with George Clinton speaking a short passage about maggots in the mind of the universe. And then that is followed by 10 minutes of Eddie Hazel's dropping, mind-melting solo electric guitar. The legend of the recording is that both George and Eddie were tripping on LSD in the studio, and that Clinton coaxed the performance out of Eddie Hazel by telling him to play as if he had just learned that his mother had died. The result is intensely emotional, super intense, and I think incredibly heavy. Dave, is Maggot Brain heavy?
When you arrive there, it is heavy. But it takes a journey. And I feel like this is not the first time I've been on this journey during this project. And I love it because it makes me think about why are we talking about this song? And so my first pass through, it's like, I don't feel like this is heavy, but then I listen to it again. I'm like, this is another one of those songs that is presence of absence. There's so much that isn't there. That's the weight of it. And so the guitar is very elegant. The whole thing is very reminiscent of Pink Floyd. I thought it's got this very soaring, wandering, breathy kind of guitar that has moments of noodly, um, but bluesy, but very rock.
Mm-hmm.
And there's kind of this droning beat going on underneath it, and the space between the drums down low and the bass down low and the guitar kind of soaring, that all that space between is the heaviness.
Yeah, and there are versions subsequently released on reissues and deluxe versions and whatever where you can hear the full, effectively a full rock band playing while Eddie is playing, and in the final version, almost all of that was taken out for what is again basically just a 10-minute guitar solo. It's a guy and a guitar.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you how I arrived personally at Maggot Brain being heavy. I became aware, or at least interested in George Clinton sometime around 1983 or 4, whenever the Red Hot Chili Peppers album Freaky Styley was released, which was the second Red Hot Chili Peppers record. So whatever year that was. George Clinton produced that record, and we, from the first album, loved the Chili Peppers, and that was the time where funk and rock was the big thing, and the presence of George Clinton made us go back and check out and listen to all of those old Parliament and Funkadelic records. And that's when I first heard James Brown and Slave and the Ohio Players and all of that stuff. Yeah,
Slave is so good.
So good. Some of it I heard as a kid, around my sisters and whatever, but they didn't listen to a ton of that music. I mean, Al Green and that stuff, sure, but not the real funky stuff. And so the Chili Peppers were kind of my gateway drug into that. And it's funny, my disdain for the Chili Peppers has grown significantly in the decades, and my love and appreciation for George Clinton has only grown. But that is not the point. So through Freaky Styley and George Clinton's participation, I bought Maggot Brain and loved the whole album except for the title track, and never got it. Like, never understood, why is this song not, let alone the first song on the album, why is this song on the album? Is this even a song? This is guitar wanker bullshit. This is pointless. Like, give me the funk kind of stuff. So I would always skip the title track. I never liked it. I never liked it so long that it took a global pandemic to get me to appreciate the song Maggot Brain. It was in 2020 during COVID that, for whatever reason, I can't even necessarily remember the reason, but I went back and I revisited the song Maggot Brain, and it was like a light switch turned on. Like, immediately it was like, whoa, like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know if I had to have lived a certain amount of life or have gone through a certain amount of experience, or if it was just the headspace that I was in as a result of all of the emotion around the pandemic and George Floyd and everything. But it was literally like a switch flipped. Like I could hear it for the first time. And my reaction to it was really emotional and really intense and heavy. Like oh whoa, this is heavy. And then, flash forward a few years, I read a few books. So one specifically called Monolithic Overtone, or Monolithic Overlords, I think is what it's called, which was really the inspiration for this podcast, which talks about, and a second book I read too about drone music and about where the drone came from and experimental music in the 60s and lots of different things. And through reading some of those things about different definitions of heavy and genre and acid rock and acid jazz and African music and classical, which we chose not to talk about on this podcast, but classical music and Wagner and how those things are heavy and contribute and whatever. So all this different stuff. And as I'm kind of exploring these themes and these ideas, it was really obvious that we had to talk about Maggot Brain. And I think you're right. I think there are two pieces to it. One we talked about a lot in the Pink Floyd episode, and that is the use of space and atmosphere. And the other one we talked about in the Janis Joplin episode, and that is the notion of desperation and emoting. And I think those two things are deeply embedded into the 10 minutes of Maggot Brain. And that is why I think it's so heavy. And now it's funny, I listen to it all the time now. A lot. I listen to it a lot, but never with the complete album. So I listen to it on a
You're
bunch.
making up for all the time that you skipped
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's kind of not part of the record. I still do listen to the album, but I almost always skip it, and it's a separate thing to me. But it's become this big, important, emotional thing for me over the past 5 years, and it's just become kind of in heavy rotation, and a song I wanted to talk to you about.
I'm glad you brought it to the table.
So, what's your relationship with Clinton and Funkadelic and Parliament?
So my relationship with them is really being introduced to them through the DC crew that we met in the dorms.
Francisco. So we met at San Francisco State University.
Thank you.
These
Sorry, I
were
forgot about that.
dorm mates of ours in San Francisco.
So the following year, their friends graduate and they all move into a Victorian in Lower Haight. And one of the guys there, I became really good friends with, and he was super into all kinds of interesting music, and big into like this kind of funk, really big into it. So um, that was when I first heard about Parliament, P Funk, Funkadelic. And then I actually have gone to see George Clinton probably in the 1990s, the late 90s. It was the late 90s in San Diego. And I've seen Bootsy Collins in Santa Cruz. That was actually for my 22nd birthday. That was fun. Um, but I don't really have that much of a relationship. Not really in my normal rotation. I only know the greatest hits. Uh, and it was something that occurred to me at the Bootsy show all those years ago. It was like, Oh, damn. There's a lot of music. Like, I actually had a couple of Bootsy albums, but I was like, there's a lot of stuff that he's playing I don't know,
Mm.
but it's great. So I got to go back to this. And I just, for whatever reason, haven't gone, haven't gone back in. A a lot of the non hits can get a little bit too experimental to me, for me. And some of it is too like cocaine party vibe.
Hmm.
Um, More so than a band like Slave, who I think is a good analog comparison in many ways. Um, so that's my relationship, which is pretty shallow, but some personal contact.
Well, and you were never a big hip hop guy. And, of course, Funkadelic has a massive resurgence with G Funk and West Coast hip hop in the 90s. That is all of that is, you know, Parliament
Yeah, not
Funkadelic sample.
true, but I'm a huge funk fan.
Hmm.
So like I am a big fan of a bunch of other bands like Ohio Players and Slave and all of those,
Yeah, it's all
all of those
great. It's
guys.
all great. All
But
that
all
70s
this
funk
like
is great.
70s funk jazz, like Herbie Hancock,
Hmm.
the Herbie Hancock uh, Fat Albert Rotunda album.
Hmm.
You know, he did the music for Fat
Yeah.
Albert.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Herbie did the music. Bill Cosby did all the voices. I grew up with Fat Albert. I didn't know this. Come to it later, I'm like, damn, that is funky, right? That's the kind of stuff that I really love.
Yeah.
So Funkadelic and Parliament and all of these related bands didn't have as much of that. It was a lot more of the hard guitar riffing kind of cocaine party vibe I
Hmm.
felt than the funky funk. It had funk in it, but it was one ingredient in a clear casserole.
Yeah, and the funk you are talking about, I love as well. And I listen to a lot of that music and grew up with some of that stuff, backed into some of it through my love of the Afghan Wigs, who are hugely influenced by a lot of it. So all of that stuff is great. None of it would I describe as heavy. And most of, again, the Parliament Funkadelic stuff, I don't think of as heavy, but there is something, again, that in Maggot Brain that, although so sparse and so airy with no low end, is
Right.
still to me so heavy. So talk about your thoughts on the song. How, had you had a relationship with it prior to talking about it tonight, and what do you think of it now?
I didn't, but now it goes into that playlist of things that I can play while I'm working on stuff.
Hmm.
Um, I really like the vibe, and it does create a vibe. So I think it's a pretty cool song. I didn't know about it before this, and I let it bleed into the album, and I got into it a few songs, and then like wasn't in the right mood for it. I don't think. Um, but this song all by itself is going to land on a playlist for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. The other stuff, Hit It and Quit It and Super Stupid are just great fucking jams, big party anthems. But the only thing to me that's super emotive on the record is Maggot Brain.
Yeah,
And it's also one of those songs, I think, and I've known that story about Clinton telling Eddie that, play like you've just learned that your mother died. That's, sort of lore. That makes the song heavier. So it's one of those songs where if you know the myth, it adds weight to the song. And I love that, 36 episodes in, that's, there's some records and lists and things thrown in there, so not necessarily 36 songs, but around 30 songs or whatever it's been that we've talked about so far. And the two probably most emotive, expression filled guitars electric guitars played in rock music are by two black dudes, Jimi Hendrix and Eddie Hazel. And
There you go.
it's the story that's oft been told. Everybody should go watch the movie Sinners. But it's that thing. It's like you don't think of black guys playing rock music, even though they effectively invented rock music. And when they do it better than everyone else. And to me, this is another 10-minute example, and it's not ripping Yngwie or Steve Vai scales. It's playing with the deepest sorrow and emotion that makes it feel like the weight of the world. It's just epic and great.
Yeah, you feel it. And it's again the presence of absence. There isn't a lot of noodly guitars. There isn't anything else going on. So you have just room to feel its weight.
Right. Would you, forgetting the fact that it's Funkadelic, forgetting what the rest of the album sounds like, what genre would you tag Maggot Brain with?
Psychedelic rock. This sounds like a Pink Floyd song to me. And so I kept feeling Pink Floydy while I was listening to this song.
Yeah,
So that's how I feel.
yeah, that total. I don't hear Pink Floyd as much. Acid rock is the thing that comes to mind for me, and maybe it's just because of knowing the story. But to me, it's like, oh yeah, that's acid rock. But acid rock almost feels too cheap to label it acid rock. It's not. It's deeper than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just love it so much. Is there anything that I was trying to think of this and I couldn't specifically come up with anything. And there's guitar players out, Vernon Reid or whomever maybe that we could identify, not just because he's black, but are there other bands that you hear in this or any direct influences you can hear from Maggot Brain?
I kept hearing Pink Floyd.
No, I mean that were influenced by it.
Oh, by this? Where are we? 1971? No, I can't come up with something. If I had, I would come to it backwards, right? I would hear a band and be like, oh, I hear Maggot Brain in this song.
That's good. That's good. Let's keep that in mind because we have a lot of songs to talk about and a lot of guitar players to talk about going forward. So I would love to keep that in the back of our heads. I had never thought about it before, but now I'm thinking about it since you said it, the Pink Floyd connection, something that Eddie Hazel has in common, certainly with David Gilmour, which we talked about on the Pink Floyd episode, is that use of space, are the ghost notes, the notes he's not playing, which are as effective as what he is playing, which is what gives all those Gilmour solos, the amazing solos, so much weight, and he's not showing off how incredible his technique is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't have much more to say about Maggot Brain. I really wanted to include it in the conversation, and I do think it will help inform how we think about the electric guitar going forward. But anything else that you wanted to hit on it tonight?
No, I'm glad that they have a place. I think that they have a place in our conversation, so I'm glad that they ended up on the chart.
Yeah.
It's definitely a case of making the case for heavy. It may not appear on its face, but we're interested in this conversation in exploring what even heavy means,
Yeah.
right? So I love that this is part of the conversation because it allows us to explore that. Yeah, there's a weight here. There's a presence of absence. There's the ghost notes, and that's a thing. And it keeps coming up in our conversations of one of the things that makes something heavy. And so that certainly applies here. But again, like this is a super influential band, both from a production standpoint and from a um, influencing other music, both hip hop, but also there was this metal hip hop moment and funk metal
Yeah.
moment.
The
And
Chili Peppers. Yeah.
right, I mean, there's so many bands that tried to put this funk metal together, and it didn't really work that well for a lot of
Has not
bands.
aged well.
It really hasn't. It's very dated.
Yeah.
You're right. That's the right way put it. It feels dated, but it comes out of this. It comes out of this band, right? And so they have an anchor point kind of weight as well because they stand as an influence to so many others. And it's because they're so versatile, they have even more gravity, right? They're in hip hop, they're in metal. What?
Yeah.
How many bands, artists can genre bend like that? So
It's a really good point.
this is a
We
lot
don't
about them.
we didn't talk a lot about it, but just to touch on it a second, because you brought up production, I think that is a really key thing to them in general, but to this song specifically. It just sounds great. Like the tone of Eddie Hazel's guitar and all of the space you can hear in the room is it sounds so good that I think that helps add to, again, the weight of the song. Sonically, it sounds heavy. And we will get to some more funk. Now we've kicked the door open. We will get to James Brown. We will get to Betty Davis. We will get to something funk adjacent next week, which I will talk about in a second. But before that, we do have to talk about Song v Song, where we take our current champion pitted against the episode's current song to see what song moves forward to next week. Our current champions are Sir Lord Baltimore's Kingdom Come for Dave. Mine is Now the Who's Won't Get Fooled Again, which just defeated the Stooges Loose last week. I am really torn this week because I definitely, as many, the thousands of times I've heard Won't Get Fooled Again in my life, certainly outweigh the listens of Maggot Brain as a whole. But in recent years, I have definitely listened to Maggot Brain a lot more than I have Won't Get Fooled Again. But I've got to keep the Who going forward. It just feels like the right thing to do in the context of our conversation. So the Who will go forward for me next week. How did Funkadelic do for you against Sir Lord Baltimore?
Well, Michael, Funkadelic was nice to listen to, but will not be toppling my hero. Sir Lord Baltimore takes it again.
I will be very curious to see. I'm glancing at the list, and I think it might be a while before anybody can beat, for you, Sir Lord Baltimore, but I guess we will see. And to start, we will see next week, where we are going to stay in, I'm not going to say weird, but maybe weird for the conversation of heavy realm. It is our penultimate 1971 episode. Next week, we are going to be talking about Alice Coltrane's Journey to Sachadananda. And I say that different every time I say it. Sachadananda is how I believe it is pronounced. I will butcher it at least 10 times between now and the end of next week's episode. But that song is another one that I am very excited to get into your head and to hear your thoughts on. But that'll be next week.
Me too. I have not gone forward to hear it yet, so I'm looking forward to spending the week with it.
There have been moments, and there are a number of moments coming up where I feel excited for you to hear something, because I feel like this is going to blow Dave's mind. Dave is going to love this. And Alice Coltrane is one of them, but I guess we will find out. That will be next week. Very much looking forward to that conversation. Until then, stay heavy.
Okay, thank you. Bye.